Welcome to Compelling Conversations, where law meets business. With your host, Dara Rosenbaum, founding partner and attorney at Rosenbaum and Taylor in New York. You can watch episodes on YouTube and listen through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. For prior episodes and free resources, go to www.rosenbaumtaylor.com/learn. Now here's the host of Compelling Conversations, Dara Rosenbaum.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Compelling Conversations. And I am here today with Wendy Brown, who is certain to provide us with a compelling conversation. I will give you a little bit of background on Wendy, and then I'm going to explain a little bit about why I needed to have Wendy on the show. So since 2008, Wendy Brown has been a partner and CEO at GoldenEye Claims, Inc., a New York-based company providing a full array of investigative services, trial preparation services for attorneys, and appraisal services. Wendy holds a degree in psychology and a number of certifications related to investigations, insurance, appraisals, and more. She oversees a team that provides services to insurance companies and private clients and others in fields including insurance, construction, transportation, real estate, and more. I felt I really had to share Wendy with you because Wendy has a great story about how she's built her business, her career path, and the kind of company that she has built and the kind of work that she does. So she's actually the first ever private investigator I met. So I wanted to share her with you, and I wanted to share her story with you. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you for having me, Dara. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why private investigations? Why an investigation company?
Well, let's go back to the beginning. This is where we can start.
Okay.
Because nobody says no one wakes up and says when they're younger or wakes up after they're out of school and says, I want to go into insurance. It just doesn't happen that way. No one wants to go into insurance. So I got into insurance claims prior to private investigation by accident. No pun intended.
Oh, I like that. I didn't even notice that one. That's a good one.
Yes, so by accident. As a senior in college, I went to career planning. Didn't know I was a criminal justice sociology major. Didn't know if I wanted to go to law school. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to career planning, and there happened to be a job posting. I'd go into these back in the day. So I'm going through a huge binder that had all these jobs. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. I definitely want to be a cop. I'm like just going through. I'm like, what am I going to do? I went to 4 years.
For the younger listeners and viewers, no Google back then, no internet, no online job postings, no ZipRecruiter, no Indeed, none of that stuff.
No, we didn't have any of that stuff. That's dating me. But we didn't have. We would have to physically go to places and look through binders where you had a guidance counselor or a counselor at college that would say, okay, this is where you should go. These are your degrees. This is what you do. But I'm like, I don't want to be a cop. I'm not sure if I want to go to law school because and I don't know if I want to be a therapist and sit here and listen to people that have problems all day long because I have my own. So I wasn't sure what I want to do. So there was a posting that was in the binder that really intrigued me. It was Progressive Insurance Company. At the time, the Progressive Insurance Company, and this was in 1999, 98, had the position had a position in New York City. Now, at this time, I was going to school in New Jersey where I graduated. So I liked the position because it was like 23 West 19th Street. The fact that I still remember the address of my first real job, I was so excited. Yeah. And I think the starting pay was like $21,000. And I was just psyched. I'm like, oh my God, a real paycheck. I'm so excited. Yeah. And it was related to claims. It was an automobile program. Progressive Insurance and Company decided to write a book of business that had to do with livery vehicles, or what we call black car services. Basically, the Lincoln Town cars, the black Lincoln Town cars. It was a big business. So they decided to write a book of business that was they called their subsidiary company Progressive, National Continental Progressive. Not in business any longer. They stopped writing the book of business, and later on we'll get into why. But so when I applied for the job, I got the position. So excited. So that was my first job out of college. I worked at Progressive as just a regular claims adjuster, just basic claims adjuster handling automobiles for this livery service program. one of the things that I learned quickly was that it was a lot of fraudulent claims, a lot of jump-ins, a lot of misidentification of people, vehicles that didn't.
Let's back up. What's a jump-in?
A jump-in is when you have an automobile accident. It happens a lot with livery services such as buses, taxis, because if it's anywhere for public transportation or private transportation, because normally these people in the state of New York, they're required to have a specific commercial license for this, whether it's a bus or a limousine, or if it's a black car or a simple taxi, they're required to have those licenses. And the reason we refer them to in our industry as jump-ins is because anybody can be in your car, because it's not like it's you and I traveling in my private passenger vehicle. It would be anybody could be in it. Right. So what we experienced there, and what I experienced there, was we would have these livery vehicles, which back then they called them dollar cabs. Okay. So they were supposed to be working out of databases where I call and say, "Hi, Mr. Taxi." And they didn't have Uber back then, for all you youngins that are listening right now. They didn't have Uber, no Lyft. They didn't have any of that. It was either the Nike Express with your feet, or you would call Nike Express. But I used it all the time. Either Nike Express, the subway, and this is New York City. So the subway or the buses. Or you could call a car service. They had data, what they call a dispatch services. And you would call, and a lot of times you would just wait. So one of the things that we noticed and we observed in the late 90s, early 2000, while I was working there, is that the vehicles, the drivers of these vehicles would go corner to corner, and people would hail them. Now, at that time, that's not what they were allowed to do in the state of New York, or the city boroughs regulated. Only yellow cabs could be hailed. But black cars did it because they weren't, the dispatch services weren't 100%. And they were getting cheap money. People wanted to get back and forth. They would jump in. So you might have 6 or 7 people in these Lincoln Town cars, because they're pretty big cars. They would pack 3 in the front, like literally 3 in the front on someone's lap, 1 in the middle right next to the driver, because the driver, as he would go corner to corner, he would pick them up for a fare. $3, $5. If he had 10 people in the car or 7 people in the car, he'd make $30-$40 in about 10 minutes going a couple blocks. Right. Okay. Well, why that's frowned upon, or was frowned upon, is because we never knew who was in the vehicle. So when they would get into these automobile accidents, allegedly, there would be people that said that they were injured. Now, the driver didn't know who they were, because remember, he's picking people up off the streets, just like a yellow cab would hail. You don't exchange, don't get your date of birth or give license. You have no idea who's in your car. Right. So, we would often have the driver who would report the accident, whether he got rear-ended or someone rear-ended him, or whatever the sort of accident was. And what would happen is I'd get no fault applications or attorney rep letters for like 19 people. I'm like, okay, this isn't a bus. So how is this not a bus? So how are 19 people fitting in?
You might be able to jam in 6, but 19 is kind of pushing it, right?
Yeah, so exactly. So there'd be all these people that claim to be in the vehicle, and most of them were relatives of people that may have or friends that were actually physically in the vehicle.
Okay, so that's the jump in. It's sort of like there was an opportunity, and I'm jumping in or jumping onto this claim.
Correct. So that's what we refer to as jump-ins. Okay. So there was a lot of jump-ins that would happen, and at the time, in my opinion, I was young in the industry, so I thought that was normal. But what I ended up finding within a year or two of working there, they did not. In my opinion, a lot of the insurance companies would take it at face value that, okay, well, we can't say they weren't in there. And a lot of times with the jump-ins, the audacity of some of the passengers would literally go to the police station and get an amended police report. NYPD couldn't say one way or another, because a lot of times with these accidents, people would leave, even if people were legitimately in the car, would leave, because it would take, you call the police for an automobile accident, they're busy fighting crime, murder. They're not coming to a fender bender right away. It's not a priority. There's no fatality. There's no death. It's not a pedestrian knockdown. So there was not an urgency, and NYPD was busy. So people would leave. Sometimes they would just give the driver their name and their number and say, listen, I got to go to work. I'm not really, maybe I'm not feeling it. And to their defense, maybe they didn't feel as though they had any type of injury. Because a lot of times when you are in an automobile accident or any type of accident, sometimes you don't feel it right away, whether you're in shock. The next morning you could wake up, and it's true, it does happen, where your neck hurts or your back hurts because you got jolted pretty good, but you didn't feel it because your adrenaline was running. And then the next morning you wake up, so on and so forth. So what I identified is the particular company that I was working for, even though they're still a phenomenal company. They trained me extremely well in claims. But what I noticed is that there wasn't an urgency for investigations. They took it at face value for whatever people said in the field, or whatever, like what we call them feet on the ground for investigators. Right. So they didn't send out investigators. They would have the claimant or the other vehicle. They wouldn't send out even appraisers at that time. A lot of times, if they identified the damage being under a certain amount, let's just say 2,500, we would say, hey, send, send a couple of photographs, and send us 2 estimates. And then we would just take the median of the 2 estimates. We have a fender bender under, $2,000 worth of damage. But the big thing that we identified with this livery program, and it wasn't just Progressive that decided to write the program. There were several other insurance companies that were in the pool of what we call assigned risks insurance. There were several other companies that were in the pool, is that there would be no fault and bodily injury claims that will come out of these little $500 to $2,500 damage, property damage. So it started being a quick trend where it wasn't necessarily the property damage portion of it. They didn't even care about that. Right. So then what we ended up learning as we continued to further investigate and further push this, when I was handling these claims, because it didn't make sense to me. So when I was handling claims at my desk, on 23rd Street, which I was so excited. I was so excited to go to work every day. And I had
a desk.
I loved it. And I would take my
had a desk.
Yes, I had a desk, and I was right out of school, and I was like, my real job, but it didn't make sense. And when I would go to my manager, because there's only about 4 or 5 people that were in this particular office for Progressive, I would go to them like, well, listen, for example, this police report has 4 people, but we got 7 no-fault applications. He's like, well, maybe they left. There was never we need to look into that further. We believe people, to be honest.
So you're seeing at that first job, you're seeing a lot of things that are suspicious, a lot of things that are potentially fraudulent, a lot of things that you think that maybe Progressive should have been looking into. The Progressive was like, let's just take it at face value, move on to the next claim.
Correct. They didn't want to upset the insureds. They didn't want to upset the insureds and when you would call the drivers, sometimes the drivers had no idea. They're like, no, I had 4 people. So then I would often ask, well, why shouldn't we be taking a statement from our driver? Well,
and also, if he says he's got 4 people in the car and you've got claims for 7, well, which 4 were in the car?
Right. So
you can't take the first 4. I mean, you have to figure out which ones
you go off the list. I'm not I'm not a psychic. I don't know who was in the car. Right. When we would have the drivers that would cooperate, they would be willing to, if I send you pictures. So what ended up happening is I got extremely frustrated with the answers I was getting when I would ask, well, why don't we go out and take statements? Let's go take photographs of the vehicles, both vehicles, all vehicles. Let's go out to the site investigation. At that time, video cameras on buildings and video cameras for NYPD weren't that big. Right. So there weren't a lot of if you could canvass and find people. But even if you did go out and canvass, people that were on the streets or that saw it didn't really want to get involved. But I used to say, well, why can't we take statements from the passengers, because they're collecting a first party benefit, which is called no fault in an automobile accident.
So they're collecting money for
collecting money for medical treatment, correct? And based on that, they become a defined insured. So with that said, it just didn't make sense to me. And you can ask my mom, when things don't make sense to me, I don't stop asking questions. I just keep asking and asking. And this will tie in with where I got to be investigation. It's never good. And there's never, I need to know, I need to understand, and I need to be able to make sense of it. Right. And if I don't, I will continue to ask questions and investigate further, even just work or personally, professionally. That's just who I am. I need to know why and understand it and be okay with it, or at least it makes sense. So when I was getting some kickback from the carrier, when I was sending out requests for signed statements, I was sending out requests for recorded statements, I was sending out requests for, at that time, we did start requesting for examinations under oath, so that
like
a recorded statement with a court reporter that we can see if these people were really in the car. Right. And I got a lot of pushback from the company, so I played my part. And they don't want to spend money on investigations, didn't want to hire an independent adjuster. So one of the things that I brokered with Progressive is that is my first job where I became an inside outside adjuster. The adjuster, what that means is, as an inside adjuster, for insurance companies, back then they only had, you were either inside full time or you were outside as a field investigator.
Okay, so inside meaning in the office, outside.
In the office, I'm sorry. So you would be inside the office handling claims from a desk and a computer. The outside investigators or appraisers would go out and take statements or do whatever. Okay. Progressive did have outside investigators that were on staff, but they were busy. There's like 3 for all of New York State. So, and they were, and they
probably not enough.
And then when they would go out there, I get the reports back and I'd be like, really? Why didn't you ask this, 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 and this? So then I just wasn't, I needed to know more. Okay. So I volunteered I volunteered to take my own statements. I got it cleared with management and said, listen, I need to work my own files. And it's taken a year and a day for the investigator to get back to me. So I would like to, and they approved it. We got special permission, and myself and 2 of my other team members that had worked with me at the time also did the same thing. So we started having 2 different hats on. The first hat would be adjusting from your desk, maybe in the morning, and in the afternoon, I would head out into the field and take statements or site investigation and canvassing. And what I realized is that actually handling and investigating these claims that I was handling made such a difference in my payouts, made such a difference in my expenses.
Meaning
in a positive way.
Meaning it made a difference what it was going to cost Progressive to pay.
Absolutely. And they actually started realizing that. So they started realizing it, and so they started putting positions out for what we call inside outside. So you had like a double desk. You were inside half the day, and then the other half of the day you'd be out and you'd handle your own stuff. So that's where I got my first real taste of investigations. And I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. So after I left Progressive, I ended up going to another company, a couple other different companies, and handling. I went to another carrier, and then I went to another small independent surveillance company. And that's actually when I met you. So yes. I went to his firm. And it was a private investigation firm that handled surveillance, trial preparation, subpoena service, and they would handle what an independent adjusting firm is, or a private investigation firm. For some people that don't understand exactly how a private investigation firm gets involved in insurance, because when you see a private investigator, you hear someone walking around following your husband or your wife, or like some matrimonial, or like doing things like that. But private investigators and trial investigators are a huge, huge part of our insurance industry. They literally, I truly believe, that investigations make or break, along with the team that you're working with in the litigation defense, make or break your case.
So you're talking about make or break lawsuits for insurance companies.
Correct. Where if early aggressive investigations are done on claims in the infancy stage, like what we were doing at Progressive when we first started doing it, it made such a difference, and we were able to get rid of, claims that we didn't have to, that we shouldn't have paid. Listen, the job is not anything in insurance, and even as a private investigator, as we work real quick, we're not trying to deny claims. Insurance is here. Insurance is here to pay claims that there is a negligence and there's actually an injury or damages being completed. Not just because someone thinks they hit the lottery because they got rear-ended. That's just not how it works. People have a misconception. And the misconception also, they don't realize when they make these claims against these insurance companies, and they're really not, I don't want to say valid, or they're fraudulent claims. We all, as an industry, as people, as consumers, we all pay for that. All of us pay for it. So one of the things that when I went to the other company, the independent or private investigation firm, we handled for several different carriers and several different defense firms, hence where I met you at. And I got an even bigger, as far as bigger appetite to handle claims and handle investigations and really be boots on the ground for the city, for our clients, for our defense counsels, for our insurance companies. Because I realized at that point, a lot of the companies either didn't want to pay or didn't want to hire independents or hire private investigators or hire trial investigators. And they didn't want to hire W-2 employees to do the same thing. So insurance companies started getting hit with these huge verdicts, and defense counsels did the best they can. But as investigators and adjusters, it is our responsibility to prepare the cases that we're going to fight properly so that when we hand off the baton to our defense counsel, they have something to work with. They have the tools, and good or bad, whether it's positive or negative, our job is just to collect evidence. Like that's what investigators and independent adjusters and, property appraisers. I happen to be blessed with all those licenses, which I love. I love everything about investigations and property appraisals and claims, because it gives you, we are the ears, the eyes, the feet, whatever, for insurance companies and defense counsels and self-insureds and municipalities. So we went to the other company, and I got even a bigger appetite. And I could not be put in a box. I wanted more. And the gentleman that we were working for, myself and actually my partner at Gold and I was also working there, we wanted to do things differently. And meaning is the idea of, well, you don't want to upset everybody. Insurance companies aren't doing this. I've never followed rules. I know that sounds bad. Don't listen to that. But as far as that's the norm, that's how we did it for so long. That's the norm. But if it doesn't totally agree with protocols and procedures, that's not, and laws and regulations. But if it's not working, we need to look at it to make the changes so we can adapt. Because on the, you have our adversaries are up in Albany, lobbying, doing everything else. But the insurance companies are, 2 and 3 and 4 generations, I'm not kidding, behind them. They're still handling claims. There's some companies to this day that still handle claims, paper, pencil, and municipalities where they have like some things digital. They don't know if they should go digital. And they're really handling it.
No, they should go digital. They're not so sure about that technology, right? The computer.
No, absolutely not. And it's in order to properly handle any claim, investigations and related to investigations is, people need to be properly trained, and they need to work with a good team. So when I was working with this other firm, I wanted more. We had differences of opinions on the vision of my position there. So I quit because I didn't want to do something that I didn't believe in.
Okay.
And I didn't have a job. I did not know what I was going to do. I had my licenses, so I just started working as a catastrophe adjuster. What that means is I started doing property claims. When there's hurricanes or fires, mass fires, the insurance industries around the country put up these what they call adjuster calls. So for about 3 or 4 months, I would go down to, I did Katrina, I did Andrew, I did Rita in Florida, I did Katrina, we even actually did Sandy here.
All hurricanes.
Hurricanes, I'm sorry. Yeah. And that is when I decided, because I interviewed for a couple of different companies. I was able to pay my bills because I was working as an independent for a bunch of different carriers. And what I realized is when I left that other firm, and when I left the other private investigation firm, the clients that we worked with there, because I was there for a couple of years, found us. And when I say us, they found myself and my partner, Mike, and wanted to work with us. We didn't have any non-competes or anything. And we didn't go to them. They came to us and like, hey, I know you left the firm, but can you serve some subpoenas? Can you go take some statements? Because no matter what job that I was at, whether I agree with it or not, I always work my hardest. And I always put, no matter what, it's my name on it. So even though I don't necessarily agree with everything, and I'll speak to the young ladies that are going to school and want to push through, you're going to have a lot of you're going to have a lot of challenges, especially as a female, in any industry. with that said, and you're going to have a lot of no's, and there's going to be people that think you can't do it because you're a woman. You can't do it because, well, that's not what you're going to be doing. You need to be home barefoot, pregnant with kids. Listen, I'm a mother of 3, one young child, 2 stepsons that I love dearly. And it takes work, but don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't do it, because that was what I was always told, especially trying to be a female investigator in the state of New York. I think there's about 7 of us. At that time, there was like maybe 5 to 7, and like 3 of them were retiring. And they were retired cops, and they were in the industry. Mostly it was a male dominated industry. Yeah. So we ended up,
because I think there's a lot of lessons in your story for people in every industry. So, I mean, you essentially picked your field, or the field that you were going to go into, from a binder when you were in college, right?
Yes, 100%.
And then it sounds to me like you saw an opportunity when you were at Progressive for things to be done differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was something that you thought was sort of missing. And I think that's true of a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people are sitting at desks now saying, gosh, I wish this company did something else, or they're missing something, or soming's not, this could be done better. I could be saving the company money. I could making things more smoothly. And I think the lesson in that you're sharing here is that you spoke up and said, listen, I'm willing, I think it could be done better, and I'm going to be the one to do it. I'm willing to do it. Can we create a different position than I have? Can I do, I'm telling you and I'm complaining, or I'm at least raising a red flag about something that you're not doing, Progressive. And you're saying, well, I'll do it. Just let's create the position, and I'll get out in the field, and I'll take the statements, and I'll do the investigation. So it feels to me like you created, or you made the position into what you felt it should be. And you were probably blessed with people who are willing to listen.
Yeah, I mean, Progressive and some of the other companies that I work for formerly have some of the best investigation units to this day, based on some of the guidelines. I truly believe that, I don't want to say I put it out there, but just to suggest on how important it was. And don't ever think that there's a bad suggestion. If you're in a position now, whatever industry it is, but if you're in a position now and you think you have a better idea, approach your supervisor, approach your boss. Listen, they might not like it. They might not agree with it, and it might not change anything, but you know what you believe in your heart of hearts. And if you think it will truly make your job easier, then companies that have open door policies that I've worked with in the past, or that I even currently have here at GoldenEye, listen, most of the time they're open to it. They'll listen. And Progressive listened. They really did.
And that helped you find your passion, because if you had questions and making those observations and just stuck to the script, so to speak, then you wouldn't be where you are now, because you wouldn't have thought about doing the job in a different way.
Right. I would have never, if you would have asked me when I was in high school, I'm going to be a private investigator in New York City, or I'm going to be an independent adjuster in New York City, I'm going to work in insurance in New York City, would have never picked it, would have never thought of it. I just wouldn't have. But I am so blessed that this is where we are, because because of the decisions. And listen, it's a lot of hard work, and every day it's hard work. But I enjoy everything that I do. I enjoy the company that my partner and I have built since 2008 from the ground up, and very proud of it. And we work very hard. And I also, one of the things that I take great pride in is that the investigators and adjusters and process servers and notaries and property appraisers and auto appraisers that we have working for us, we have an open door policy. We have policies and procedures put in place. If somebody has a better idea or a suggestion that we can work smarter and not harder, I am the first one that jumps in. Okay, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, we can massage it and change it. Right. But it's important to know and believe in yourself and believe in what you want to do and push forward. Don't let people tell you no. Don't tell people, oh, you're ridiculous, you're a female, you can't go out into the field. I think right now, people are so glad I'm in the field because they hate when I'm in the office because I can't stop talking.
I think the other thing lesson is
when I'm not here, actually.
And this lesson I think that you brought up was like, it's never been done that way. We've never done it that way. It isn't done that way. And I think what you're really sharing here is that there's a lot of things that you learn by working for other people, and you kind of tucked it in your back pocket, going like, well, when I do this myself, I'm not going to do it that way. Right. Or this is the service I want to offer in a different way, or this is the way I want to lead a company, or this is how I want things to be done. And these are ways that you can innovate, I think, in your industry that you've certainly done, that probably have come from just watching and learning the way that people were doing things and the way that you thought they could be done better. And I think that's something that people can learn no matter what industry or field they're in, that if they're working for somebody else, take all those opportunities to take all the information that you're seeing, whether it's something that somebody's doing really well, something that somebody could be doing better, something that you just think they're completely screwing up. Just, that's where you learn how you want to do it when you're opening your own shop, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And it's challenging. There's days, but I learned, we've had GoldenEye has been operating since proudly November 2008. Okay, is when we started, when Mike and I started working and opening GoldenEye. And I'm extremely proud of where we're at. And I'm extremely proud of the opportunities that we not only offered for ourselves, but the other people that we work with, not just our employees, our defense counsels, our IME vendors, or all the vendors that we work with.
Just again, acronym IME. What's an IME?
Independent medical examinations, our defense counsels for defense attorneys, our court reporters that do the stenography for our EBTs and our examinations under oath. We've created platforms that we can work together. And I learn every day. I make mistakes every day. But I learned it. I learn from all the good and bad people that I interact with on a regular basis. And I don't mean bad people, but people that necessarily wouldn't be my friend outside of work if I didn't have to deal with them. Right. But like you had said before, when you open up your business, when you first open up your business, there's a lot of learning lessons that you learn. And as a business owner, you continue to learn lessons every day. Oh, yeah. And to not be open to that, because people are like, oh my goodness, you have your own business, you make your own hours. Yeah, longer, a lot longer.
You stole that from me, I think.
I did. That's your saying. Like, you stole that from me. That's so great. That is actually, I have to do that. Longer.
Let's finish the story though. So we get to 2000. It's November 2008. What's happening in November 2008 that you and Mike are starting GoldenEye?
We ended up catastrophe. We were right in hurricane duty, and we had other people that were working at the last firm that we were with that wanted to come work with us. And I'm like, well, I don't have any money. I can't pay it. They're like, well, we'll work per diem. We'll work the cases, and we can.
Per diem, meaning you're paying them by the day.
We'll pay them by the day, or by the task, or by the assignment, or by the vehicle that they appraised, or the property that they appraised.
Okay, so you're not hiring them on as employees at that point. You're just paying them for the work.
We didn't have we had Mike and I were bonded and insured and licensed, but we didn't have all the extra additional insurances like workers' comp, and we didn't know anything about running a business.
You didn't have a company at that point.
No, we incorporated, and we're like, it's us. Yay, let's go. So we would just literally go out all day. We would take statements. Mike would serve subpoenas. I would be out in the field taking statements, meeting with defense counsel, running around. And then that would be all day. And then we get home at 4 o'clock from like 4 to midnight. We're writing up our reports because we needed to get that money back into the company. Because remember, we had no money. We didn't take out loans. We didn't have any money. We would just keep flipping it and flipping it and flipping it. And we were blessed enough to work with, obviously your last firm with you and your partner at that time, and some of the other wonderful carriers that you guys introduced us to, some of the other carriers and defense counsels that we also work with. And because of people believing in our services and doing the best that we can, listen, our investigations are good. And I'm very proud of our investigations, but they're not perfect. So we would learn from what we could do better and whatnot. So in 2008, we opened the company. A couple of the other people that were working at our last company said, we'll come work for you, because we started getting busier. We're like, oh my God, we got 2 claims today. Woohoo! We were so excited. It was like the best thing in the world. We know, okay, 2 claims, that's $500. We split it. Like we already, like every pencil was accounted for, every second, every piece of paper. Right. But it was worth the hard work, because there was a lot of no's, a lot of no's. There was a lot of companies. They didn't want to work with us. They didn't want to work with me because I was a female. They didn't think that it would, it's not, I don't know why. Some people in our particular industry, which is a male dominated industry, I will say that to a T, in the insurance industry, at least it's much better now. But in the early 2000s, there was very few females that were in the industry in any executive position. And there definitely weren't a lot of investigator females, or even adjusters for that matter, that handled it. The only type of adjusters that were females, or a lot of them, were handling medical bills or no fault. They didn't handle litigation. They didn't handle bodily injury. So the industry has changed for the better, but there were a lot of no's, and it was a lot of hard work. And we literally built GoldenEye one investigation at a time. No pun intended. We did. And we still do that to this day.
And I think that's really important, I think, because, you think about it, by 2008, you have a career. I mean, you have a well-established a track record of doing this kind of work, and you've been doing it for a long time.
Right.
And it was still, when you and Mike opened up Goldeneye, it sounds like it was still, like you said, counting the pencils, waiting for the phone to ring, building it case by case, matter by matter, client by client. It wasn't like you said, like, well, I've been doing this for X number of years, and now I'm going to open the door. The floodgates are going to open. The money is going to pour in, and I'm going to be a tremendous success.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Well, at least it didn't work like that for Mike and I. But we didn't expect it. I mean, you figure 2008, I'm 10 years out of college, and I could have went and worked for a carrier. I could have easily went and worked for inside position, because at that time in 2008, a lot of companies were now agreeing that investigations were important, and they were starting their own internal, inside. Would I say that internal W-2 outside adjusters? I know that's outside, but they're W-2 employees because they saw the value in, investigations is key, and good investigations is priceless.
Right.
So it makes a difference. So we built it literally one investigation at a time. And we never had contracts with our clients. We didn't want contracts with our clients. We wanted our clients to come. We wanted our clients to come and use us because we were good, not because they were forced to use us.
Right.
We were only as good as our last investigation. So it was imperative that we made sure we did a good job on every single claim, and every single investigation, whether it was a statement, whatever it was, no matter what it was.
And I think that's a great way, because I think that, it's difficult. I mean, I did it obviously with our, Scott and I did it with our firm.
Yes.
I know plenty of my clients who have done it. Somebody says, I'm an architect and I'm going to start my own company. I've been doing it for X number of years, or I'm a graphic designer, I'm a nutritionist, I'm a doctor, I'm a landscaper, whatever kind of field somebody's in. When they feel like, okay, I've been working for somebody for a long time. I know my job. I know my business. I know the industry, and I'm ready to do it on my own. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy.
Right.
But it's really worth it. And I think that's the answer, is that, you and I
definitely, definitely worth it. It's a lot of work, but it's to me, I would not change the track record that I have, good or bad, my career path, good or bad, with the decisions I make, because I wouldn't be here without the choices that I made.
And that leads okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said I wouldn't be here. I have one of the best partners in the world. He's a great partner.
I know Mike. He is a great partner.
Mike, he's a great guy. He's one of the best trial investigators I've ever met in my entire life. He knows how to do stuff that, after Mike and I being together knowing each other for over 20 years, he surprises me. Every day he surprises me with something else, because he knows.
Gotta keep learning.
Courts. Yeah, he knows the courts, and he's very humble, just like I am when it comes to investigations or anything. Working in this business, because this is what I want. If anybody gets anything out of this podcast today, I would like for people, male, female, young, old, in a career, starting a career, be open-minded and be humble. You will, if you get more when you listen than when you talk. And no matter if you've been in the industry or whatever industry it is, investigations, insurance, law, medical, business, hospitality, you learn every day from everybody else around you. That will allow you to grow. I truly am a big believer of karma. I'm truly a big believer on being humble. I believe that I've become successful because of the great people that I work with, from Rosenbaum and Taylor, working with them, other firms, learning from different judges. Some better than others, but I've learned from them what to do, what not to do. And when you are humble and when you work with people, like I said, I've been doing this for in the industry over 30 years. Oh my God, I'm getting old. But as a whole, Goldeneye and the other companies that I work with, over 20, going on almost 20 years. Well, regardless, I'm not good at math. That's why I'm an investigator. I'm not good at math. Or spelling, for that matter. But we don't have to talk about that. But as a whole, you learn, and it'll allow you to pole vault. It'll allow you to pole vault wherever you're at, because people want to help you. I had, as a young and female investigator coming in the industry, even with Progressive, they gave me a shot because I wanted to, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to know. Working with great firms like yours, working with some of the other, people are willing to teach you. I mean, I remember when I first started working with you at your firm, there were certain things that you needed done for your file. We weren't great trial prep. I mean, I had industry experience, but I didn't have trial prep. Trial preparation is an investigator that works with defense counsels or works with an attorney, doesn't plaintiff or defense counsel, attorney, a defense attorney, where we have to serve subpoenas, get expert witnesses, get films to the courthouse, when I say films, MRI for medical films,
locate witnesses,
and bring them to court. I never knew how to do that before I came and worked with your prior firm with you guys. We had an idea how to do it. And Mike, my partner, was doing it ahead of time, but I didn't. I learned from Mike. I learned from your firm, your last firm, and you and the attorneys I work with. And every day we learn something different. I mean, when
you may have just stolen my final question there on, but I'll ask you anyway. Because obviously learning and keeping an open mind and staying humble, I think are great lessons for everybody. But is there something else that you wanted to share or that you would like to share that you learned along the way that you'd wish you'd learned earlier?
Don't be as hard on yourself as you think. My biggest critic is me. So don't be as hard on yourself. You're going to get no's. You're going to get a lot of yeses. You're going to get a lot of cheerleaders, and you're going to get a lot of naysayers. What I would have done, I wouldn't have changed anything. I really wouldn't have, because it made me who I was today. But I will give a word of advice is be humble, be open-minded. And for no matter if you've got 30 years experience or 3 years experience, absorb knowledge and education and training from the people that have it around you.
I love that.
Definitely.
So Wendy, how can people find you? How can people find GoldenEye if they want to learn more?
GoldenEye, we have a website, which is www.goldeneyeclaims.com. We have, on our website, it'll tell you our contact number. We have an office in Valley Stream. We cover all of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. We are licensed in all those states. We cover a range of services for trial investigation, process serving, every insurance specialty for investigations, for every line of coverage we handle. Check out our website. We'd love to have even if you have a question, give us a call. And Mike and I will be more than happy to talk to anybody and walk people through whatever they need. Okay. And if you're looking for a job, go on my website and send me an email, because we are looking for investigators. We're always looking for good investigators, and we're always looking for good junior investigators, which we call for support. I just had to put that in there so everyone can hear. We are hiring. I love
that, because it sounds, listen, that's how you got started, is somebody gave you a shot. So I love that. And I'll put all that information when we post the video. I'll put all that information available so people can click and find you.
Awesome. I appreciate your time, Dara.
This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed this, Wendy. And thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.